Well, the Green Bay Packers have named its next president and CEO.
Ed Policy is going to be taking over next July. The person who's in that position right now is Mark Murphy. He is going to reach the team's mandatory retirement age for that position of 70 years old. His replacement, Ed Policy, is 53 years old and is the team's current chief operating officer and general counsel. He's entering his 13th year with the team. This morning, the Packers board of directors unanimously voted for him to become the 11th CEO in the team's 105-year history. The Packers are not accepting interview requests about this move. However, Fox 11's Ben Krumholz spoke with two people who've worked closely with Policy about the big announcement.
The Packers have enjoyed success on and off the field since Youngstown, Ohio native Ed Policy joined the team in 2012. One of his most notable tasks has been helping oversee the development of the 45-acre Titletown district.
We really hope that after you see the site, that you're going to agree that Titletown is going to be truly transformative for our community.
Transitioning to his new role shouldn't be a big adjustment, according to those who perhaps know Policy best in a professional sense.
It was actually through Commissioner Goodell who introduced us and said, hey, this is a sharp young guy with lots of promise.
David Baker was most recently the president of the Pro Football Hall of Fame. However, he spent 12 years as commissioner of the Arena Football League. Policy was his deputy commissioner most of that time before taking over the lead role in 2009.
When I was working with Ed, what always struck me the most was he is the best listener I have ever met. And he's really tuned into you. And I think he'll listen a lot to the people of Green Bay and the Packer fans across the nation.
Policy is the son of Carmen Policy, former president of the San Francisco 49ers, who played a major role in the team's 5 Super Bowl wins in the 80s and 90s.
Ed grew up literally in the NFL during its formative years, from Pete Rozelle to Paul Tagliabue. And so he was around a lot of those owners. I think the game is in his blood. Yeah, I'll tell you, I can't think of another guy, and I've got a lot of friends who become club presidents, but I can't think of another guy who is more perfectly suited for the job there in Green Bay than Ed Policy.
The Packers started the process of having to replace Murphy early last year, but things really ramped up in May when a search committee was formed. After looking at a list of 90 potential candidates, the committee decided to keep things in-house, a welcome move by some that worked closely with both Murphy and Policy.
And Ed was one of those early leaders who really embraced me and welcomed me into Green Bay, provided a lot of counsel, a lot of great advocacy for the work that we do in the community.
Dennis Buehler is the president and CEO of the Greater Green Bay Community Foundation. Policy served on the foundation's board of directors for 6 years. Buehler says Policy was particularly influential in how the Packers helped the foundation get resources to those who needed it during the COVID pandemic.
Obviously, people have seen the impact he has had on the football operation and the Green Bay Packers over the years, but I'm not sure many people know about the extent of his work behind the scenes and working with community groups and nonprofits and really trying to lift this community up.
In a statement released through the team, while Policy says a positive impact on the community will continue to be paramount in decision-making, the Lombardi Trophy will always be the team's North Star. In Green Bay, Ben Krumholz, Fox 11 News.
Both of the men you heard from in that story also spoke highly of Ed Policy when it comes to family. He is married with 2 sons, ages 16 and 13.
So to start, can you kind of take me back when you first met Ed and what's kind of the history between the two of you?
Well, I'll tell you, I was president and CEO of the Arena Football League for 12 years. And for the largest portion of that, Ed was my deputy commissioner. And he started as my general counsel, then I elevated him to deputy commissioner because he did such a good job. I had met Ed along the way. It was actually through Commissioner Goodell who introduced us and said, hey, this is a sharp young guy with lots of promise. And we had a lot of good, wonderful people that worked at the Arena Football League. And Ed was certainly amongst the best. But he kind of got involved, and I don't know how long Ed was there, but it was for the great majority of the time that I was there. I was working with and relying on Ed.
So he kind of took over the commissioner role when you left, right?
Yes, he did.
So you were the Mark Murphy in that position before. So you've been in the transition with him. What was it like maybe getting him ready to take over for you?
Well, I'll tell you, first of all, I got a lot of respect for Mark and think he's done a wonderful job. When I was president of the NFL Hall of Fame, Mark was, and all the Green Bay staff was wonderful because we kept inducting and enshrining so many Packers. But it's also a situation for Ed. When I was working with Ed, what always struck me the most was he is the best listener I have ever met. He could remember conversations as to how they were said and what was said, and he's really tuned into it. And I think he'll listen a lot to the people of Green Bay and the Packer fans across the nation. But because he was such a good listener, um, he was very intelligent, and that intelligence led to good judgment. And that good judgment has made him, I think, one of the most graceful men I've ever known. He has a lot of grace and character in him. Like I said, a good listener, very intelligent, and great judgment. He gets a lot of that, obviously, from his dad, who was with a storied franchise in the San Francisco 49ers and then later on as owner of the Browns. But his dad was a lawyer and worked as Eddie DeBartolo's right-hand guy with the 49ers. And I think Ed gets a lot of his grace and a lot of his talent from his dad. Ed grew up literally in the NFL during its formative years, from Pete Rozelle to Paul Tagliabue. And so he was around a lot of those owners. I think the game is in his blood. He has a lot of respect for the integrity of the game and the fact that when you have one of these teams that is your responsibility, it's not a position of power, it's a fiduciary responsibility to those you serve. So it's in his DNA to do something like this. But I think every father wants his son to be better than he is. And I think Carmen Policy is probably celebrating the same way. But to get there, Ed's got to win at least 6 Super Bowl championships because Carmen won 5. So I'm sure there'll be a little bit of friendly rivalry between father and son. But I think Mark Murphy has done a spectacular job for you guys. He is good people and a quality executive. But so is Ed, and I think he's leaving it in the best of hands.
It seems like he's so well rounded with that. He does have those roots, from the football aspect, but then also what we've seen here is that he's been so influential with the off the field element of building the Titletown district and the community efforts. Is that sound about right?
Yeah, I think he's got a big picture to the game. He respects the integrity of the game. He respects the legacy that the Packers have. But more importantly, I think, is very cutting edge in terms of the marketing and the brand extension that is spreading throughout the NFL right now. And I think he's got a good understanding of that. I would also say one other thing, if I could, Ben. He's a great family man, from his parents to his wife, Christy, to his 2 boys. I love, now that I'm a grandfather myself, when my kids have kids, it's not just that we get grandkids, it's that it changes our kids who then become parents. And I think Ed, as a family man to his wife and to his 2 sons, makes him the perfect community representative for someone like the Green Bay Packers. Your legacy is legendary there in Green Bay. It extends throughout the world. But I would also say that it's a pretty unique position because you're the only club in the NFL without an owner. So whoever has that job is charged with the solemn responsibility of serving not just his board of directors, but that community. And Ed is a community guy. He's a family guy. He's a quality professional, a guy of the highest integrity and character who's got a lot of skills. And I think he's getting in there at a relatively young age. So I'm real excited to see all the things he's going to do for the Packers.
You talked about that connection he has with Commissioner Goodell. How much could that help, especially the franchise as a whole?
Well, again, I don't. I think certainly he has a great relationship with Roger, and that's how we originally met. After the Arena Football League, he spent a little bit of time working there at the NFL and with Roger. But I think he has spent his entire childhood kind of in the halls of the NFL or at those owners' meetings, where there's a lot of the story was that they would never in the NFL they would never let Ed's dad buy the wine or order the wine because it was so expensive. But Ed has been with not just the commissioner, but he understands the history of the league. He understands the people at 345 Park Avenue. He understands those other owners who, frankly, they all compete with each other 4 hours a week, but the rest of the time they're partners in this product that we call the National Football League. So Ed, I'll tell you, I can't think of another guy, and I've got a lot of friends who become club presidents, but I can't think of another guy who is more perfectly suited for the job there in Green Bay than Ed Policy.